What's going on, everybody? Good evening. Good evening. RDAP Dan here, Federal Prison Time Consulting. Hope you guys are all having a great week and hope you enjoyed your weekend, holiday weekend, all that good stuff. Today, we got one of our awesome clients with us. We got Phillip, also goes by PJ. How you doing today, Phillip?
I have no complaints.
No complaints, and you're due to self-surrender in how many days?
Next Wednesday. So I got a few days still out here before I go on in.
So you're due to self-surrender to Coleman for how many months?
78 months.
78 months. Hopefully it won't be that long. So we'll kind of bring everybody up to speed, how you got to this point where you got a 78-month sentence. So Phillip, tell us a little bit about who you are, how you got yourself into this situation. And you know, take us back a little bit because you seem pretty humble right now for somebody getting ready to take a 78-month sentence.
I tell you what, I'm truly humble, and I exalt God into this effect. I was managing NFL players. The pandemic came on. One of the other businesses that I had, I actually did a lot of loans for players. And when all this madness happened with the pandemic, you know, I between the fact of greed, panicking, and you know, just not knowing where the next dollar come from, I put myself in a predicament that I take full blame for it. You know, and taking the loan, and you know, not only did I take the loan and put myself in the middle of some mess, I referred other people to the guy that was handling my loan. So, which put me a part of the whole conspiracy, and here I am.
And so when we look at the DOJ's website here on the U.S. Department of Justice, you know, it looks pretty bad here. 2 men sent to, you know, because the amount was, what was the total amount? It was what, 35. Was it 35 million?
Amount of it was like 71 people all together that took loans or applied for the loans through, you know, through one person, and I was responsible for referring a large sum of the people. And I actually referred 5 people that end up referring people to refer people. You know, it was just like a big
pyramid scam.
Let me tell you something, man. I learned some valuable lessons. You know, it was some sleepless nights. So if anybody's out there that's going through this experience or about to or in it, you know, you can make it through it. And I haven't even made it to the part of turning myself in, but I will tell you, for the last 2 years of just not knowing you know, what's going to happen, the unknown, you know, putting your family through a lot, you know, just losing a lot, but through it all, you know, I told the judge said, how did I feel about things? And I said, I told her, and I told the prosecutor, I said, if I had it all over to do again, I would do it. And the whole room got silent. The whole courtroom got silent. And she said, why did you say that? And I said, because I was able to finally see what God was revealing to me himself. And my relationship with Jesus Christ now is wonderful. I'm actually, believe it or not, I'm excited about turning myself in because I feel as though I'm truly on assignment. You know, there's a lot of people that's going through a lot of things. It's only by God's grace and mercy that I met you. And, you know, just the relationship that we have built is tremendous. I wish that the minute that the FBI, you know, welcomed themselves to my house, that you would have been my first phone call. You know what I mean? And
yeah, unfortunately, you didn't find me until way later in the
way later. But even with that, you didn't deny me. God's timing is always perfect. You know, you gave me a lot of comfort in the last couple of days, and I'm truly glad that I hired you, because without hiring you, I probably have been going a little nutcase. But between God send, you know, His mercy and grace on me, and you, and not only you, just your whole staff, you know, just kind of walking me through this thing has just been tremendous.
Well, I've got quite a few clients that are SBA, whether disaster relief loan or the PPP loans. Yours were the PPP. I've got quite a few clients that we're working with right now, and I sent them all a link to this video. So, because a lot of them are brand new in the situation, kind of bring people. So, how much money did you personally? And we're going to dig into this. And anything you don't want to talk about, you just say I can't talk about that, Dan. But other than that, let's talk about it.
All my situation is public.
There we go. So how much did you actually get out of the from this that personally came to you? Because your restitution is right around $6 million, and I know that's with what, one other guy.
Yeah. Now my restitution is $6 million. My personal loan was $84,000.
Okay.
And then what I did is the guy said, basically, he communicated with me and I take forward. And he said, if you want to refer, because I had the loan company, he said, if you have any other clients that need money, one of my football players borrowed money. He said, just let me know. I'll give you your company a percentage off of everything that they get. And what was so crazy is I was trying to make a wrong into a right. I had them actually wire me everything. I ran everything through QuickBooks so I could pay taxes on all the commissions that I made. I mean, had every name in the computer. So when the feds came in, I had everything that they could possibly need to convict me guilty.
And the actual charge you got was you were charged with, I think it was wire fraud, right? You had one count conspiracy, and you pled to information. So I think you forego an indictment.
Yeah, I pled guilty. It wasn't too much more that they, because they had me, and they kind of hit all of us at the same time. They hit me. They hit the people that I referred. It wasn't one of those things where anybody, didn't get hit. They kind of hit everybody within the same 2-day period of time.
How long from the time that you started receiving money to the time that you actually got in trouble? How much time went by?
60 days.
60 days. So 60 days. It didn't last very long. So you just got these funds this year?
No, this was actually in 2020.
Okay, 2020 is when it all went down.
Right. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I'll give you something to laugh at. The name of my finance company was 60-day funding that I had. And the funding of the money that we was receiving was only 60 days. And then when I got into trouble, I started doing the only thing I could do at that time that my mother told me before she passed away was pray. And God told me to sit still for 60 days. So it's just like.
Yeah. It didn't take very long because we've had other clients that, they got their funding right when this whole thing kind of hit when COVID really became an issue, and they got their funding, but didn't really get roped into it till, a year and a half later. So you went through this. What kind of impact did this have on your family? And also, I imagine you must know there's companies out there right now that are just condemning you because they're like, because of you, I'm not getting my money because the SBA ran out of money for, so who knows, this thing had a ripple effect. So
they never ran out of money. So don't believe that. But I still was wrong in doing it. And I had a company, it wasn't like I didn't have a company.
Right.
The problem that I had is with my company is I still, even though I only took $84,000, so most people would say, the fact of taking the $84,000 was still wrong because I didn't apply for it the way that they said I should have and use it the way they say I should have.
How did you apply for it?
I applied for it, and at the time I had 7 employees. I said I had 15.
Okay, so you added, right? Okay, so people that don't know, for the PPP loan, that's the payment protection loan, and that's based on your payroll. It's based on what is it? Your I forgot how many months they take, and they average it over a certain amount of months, right? Is that what they did, or is it just based on
they average it over the last year that you had, and basically I added numbers, so that's what I was wrong, and then to actually refer people to somebody that I knew was inflating numbers, that's what wired me into everything.
Right. And it's real easy to, anybody out there can go, oh, I can't believe you would do that. But, I've been in trouble before. I went to the federal prison myself, as all of you know. Right. So when it came time to apply for our own disaster relief loan and the PPP loan, I saw immediately how easy it would be because they opened the floodgate. And I think they were more worried about getting the money out and figured they'd come back later on and kind of count, make sure everybody was doing what they're supposed to be doing. But it would have been real easy. I think when we were switching accountants at one point, the accountant even kind of alluded to, you can do this and do that. And I was like, you know what? I'm so scared of the government that, thank God I didn't now, because I see these stories like you and half of our caseload right now. But it was very easy for people to take advantage of the PPP and the disaster relief loan. Not to say that you should have done it or shouldn't have done it, but I would have thought the government would have put a little more oversight on something like this.
You know what? It's just like having a cookie jar. If your mother said, you ain't supposed to take but one cookie if you deserve it because you had good grades, and you take a whole bunch of cookies, or you take any cookie and you knew your grades wasn't right. The fact is, no matter how easy it was, no matter how hungry you was, you shouldn't have took the cookie. So I,
So
I
did you
understand.
actually, did you have an opportunity to use any of that money for the business, or did it get taken?
No. The 84 actually went right into the business. It went to payroll. I ended up hiring a couple people, but the people, a lot of people that I referred, just used the money in the way that they wanted to use it. So with me referring people that, knowing that some of them wasn't going to do right, it's just was still wrong. Why? Because I end up getting a commission off from them. So I got a commission from helping people to do wrong.
Yeah, it looks like there was 79 fraudulent loan applications, at least according to the Department of Justice.
Yep.
Yeah, so they probably were watching this for a minute, and they probably allowed it to transpire in order to put more fish into that net.
I
Now
tell you
that
what,
this,
Dan, excuse me for cutting you off. I have
sure,
to
go
say
ahead.
that it wasn't. It was one of those situations where mostly every one of these loans was done in about a 20-day period. The gentleman, James Stokes, that was actually him. He did all the paperwork for us. He did all, he did all the loans for everybody, and I would say 25 days at max. And it was a banker, a lady, that one of the bank tellers that actually jumped the gun and kind of like brought alert to everything. But the feds were already on it. But by her bringing alert to everything, it shut it down before they can really let it go further. The feds were even at my court here, and they said that she was kind of zealous bank teller.
What were
And
the red flags that brought her attention to it?
I think somebody withdrew like $100,000, and then he had a wire sent to a jeweler, and then he withdrew 100,000 cash.
Yeah, it probably wasn't a good idea. Yeah,
So
yeah.
I thank God. You know what the blessing from God is that if that didn't happen to get shut down, can you imagine how many people that would have kept referring people, and even though I might not have touched those people that they referred, they would have still been up under me.
Yep.
And I'd have been fully responsible. Why? Because I was a part of the beginning of the chain.
Now, I've had an opportunity to talk to some of your family, and you seem to have a very, very sweet family.
Thank you.
How has this affected your family? Because you've got a big family, and how is this rippling through the family?
9 grandkids.
Say that one more time.
I got 10 kids, 9 grandkids.
Woo!
Yeah.
Prison's gonna be a vacation for you, my man. So how has this affected the wife, the kids? Because these aren't like babies. You got kids in college. Is there any was anybody embarrassed? Was anybody ashamed? Were you ashamed? Did this kind of shock the system a little bit? Because you had a pretty good reputation. You were working with a lot of NFL players, and I think that business has been killed because of this. Correct?
Well, that's the first thing they did. The business was killed. I couldn't no longer do banking. So, a lot of things was killed. But once again, I think the journey of my family first, they was embarrassed because, we were upstanding. One of my twins was actually, working to become an FBI agent and doing all the schooling. So she was truly, kind of like rattled. A lot of stress on the wife, just a lot of stress on everybody. But the journey of them watching, their hardcore at one time dad go through one of the most horrible times of his life, where I was at my weakest, and just to watch God give me strength through that time. And anointment hit my whole family. Like, most of my kids are saved now. We run a weekly Bible study, just things that are unimaginable God allowed to happen. And I will tell everybody out there is look at the bright side of this, and you're talking to somebody that don't have 18 months, don't have 12 months in the day. I got 78 months, and I'm telling you that God has a purpose for all of us. Everything happens for a reason, even through our greed. Find a God of your choice. Mine is Jesus Christ, and start praying and meditate, and you'll make it through this.
When it first happened, when you first came under investigation, because you never got indicted, correct? I believe you pled guilty. You pled to information without being indicted, if I read it correctly.
Right, because the guy that was over me basically told on everybody, so it wasn't nothing to even say. Between that and my correct bookkeeping allowed them to have all the information that they need from my laptop.
So when it all came down and you found out in 2020, what kind of thoughts were running through your mind when you were looking at the consequences of this? Because at one point you pled guilty to one charge, but you were facing more than that. What did that feel like?
Oh, it felt like almost like a death sentence, like the pressure that was on me. And I want to say this: one of the things that happened with my family, because we were all family orientated with the businesses, when they locked my account and my business account, they locked all my kids' accounts as well. Even and it wasn't like they had money from this, but they locked their accounts. So it was like credit cards. I never knew the government was so powerful. One switch and they turned this completely off. So that was a lot of pressure financially. Then mentally, and I thought I was losing my mind. I really did. I was completely losing my mind.
At that point, you didn't really know the difference between like a camp, a low, a medium, a penitentiary. It was just all, you're thinking to yourself, thank God I'm a giant because I'm getting ready to go to prison, because you're a big guy. You're what? You're 6. What are you, 6?
Nah, I'm 5'11", 327.
Okay. So, yeah. So big boy though.
I don't fit good in the cell. You know what I
mean? And so you got sent. When did you get sentenced? What was your sentencing date?
My sentencing date, I wanted to say, I think it was December 16th.
And when you received the 78 months,
you're talking about the sentencing date, or I pled guilty December 16th. The sentencing date was May the 6th.
Okay, so last month. And now once you got to receive the sentence of 78 months, how much time could you have received for that one for pleading guilty? Because you get the low end of the guidelines, right?
Initially, when I walked in the door, when the prosecutor, we were in the hallway, and the prosecutor said something to my lawyer about 157 months initially.
That's what the prosecutor wanted?
That's the prosecutor was talking 157 months. And the judge, I must say that the judge, by the time she finished communicating with the prosecutor, they ended up bringing it down to 78 to I think like 97. And the judge was still working on my behalf, trying to even get it lower, but she could only do as much as she could do. She was a nice lady judge, Pamela A. Barker out in Cleveland. And the prosecutor ended up turning to her and said, I'm willing to go with the lowest of what you just said, Your Honor. So that's why I'm kind of excited, because I realized how much time I could have got, but God stepped in. So, and now even with meeting you, you've taught me ways of doing things that I can work that time down as well.
Which we're going to jump into in a second. But so now 78 months, 6.5 years, which somebody did the math for us in there as well. Thank you, April. On a 78-month sentence, and I hear you saying, thank God I got the low end of the guidelines. When you first found out about this, if they had told you you're going to go away for 6.5 years, what would that have like versus what it feels like the minute you got in trouble to now you're able to adjust, and 6.5 years doesn't sound that bad. But at some point during this journey, 6.5 years sounded like, to me, 6.5 years would have sounded like a death sentence at a certain point.
Yeah, I'll be perfectly honest. If I would have heard this at the beginning, or even in the middle, but once I started really walking this walk with God, I knew, and I asked him to let his will be done. I did a lot of praying. I led a lot of meditation, a lot of fasting. So when the judge said what she said, I understood that it was truly from God. So I had to accept it. You know what I mean? Like God really stepped in, and he took away all my anxieties. So I wasn't as scared when I turned it over to him. I have to be perfectly honest. Even right now, and I'm telling you, Dan, if I'd had Jesus, man, I wouldn't be able to smile. I'd be on here going crazy, like, ah! But I thank God that he even led me to you, So I'm telling everybody out there, find Jesus. That's the only way you're gonna make it through it.
Jesus will find RDAP Dan.
Jesus will lead you to RDAP Dan.
And it comes because, I think you even told the judge said, you told me the judge said something along the lines of, if there's ever a perfect time to go to prison, now is the time because of the programming, first step. Now, The judge made a recommendation of RDAP, and you did have the information that you provided to probation into the pre-sentence report. But when you reached out to me last week, when we started talking, I think one of the first things when you told me you were going to Coleman, he's going to Coleman Federal Prison Camp. He's going to the satellite camp at Coleman, which is now a men's prison. I think it was news to you when I explained to you that Coleman does not have RDAP at the camp. That was, I believe, the first time you knew about that.
I'm like, what do you mean? I heard the judge say that, I want you to work on your problem with the weed and alcohol. And I mean, I heard her say everything, and even my communication with the probation, the department on the PSI, they worded it, but they worded it the way they wanted to word it, and it was just like a chance. So when you told me that, I was kind of in a slump for a second, but I realized that God led me to you, that it had to be a reason why. And man, you were terrific. You helped me out a lot.
And guys, what he's referring to is probation decided to add some of their own verbiage to his pre-sentence report. And you never saw your pre-sentence report until like way after when it was completed, correct?
Correct.
Which, guys, you got to make sure, and as much as we would always like to say the attorney, it's not on the attorneys. I tell everybody that you have to be the one willing to like dig in and do the work, because at the end of the day, you guys are the ones that are going to go to prison, not the attorneys.
I tell you, for my attorney, I'm gonna give him some credit. Down at the bottom of the pre-sentence report, you know how it tells you the time that they really are going for, and it kind of. So I think my attorney knew that if I would have seen that time that they were basically talking and some of the language that they was talking, that I probably would have drove myself crazy and drove him crazy. So he kind of held it as long as he could possibly hold it.
And the issues ended up being as probation used some words like recreational, which never came out of your mouth. So it kind of diminished some of the substance issues and made it seem like it was just recreational use on his, in Florida, there was no recreational marijuana use. And for all of you who don't know, he lives in Florida, even though his case was out of Ohio. Florida is where he lives, and there's no recreational use of marijuana in Florida.
Because that mean I would be doing an illegal substance. So if I'm doing an illegal substance, I must have a problem, because I wouldn't be doing it. So,
So the problem now is he's being sent to a prison that does not have RDAP. RDAP is at the low security in Coleman. And I know somebody asked what RDAP is. We'll talk about that in a second, answer your question. But so as of right now, it doesn't look like he has the factoring needs for RDAP. So we're having a chemical dependency evaluation done that we'll submit to the prison to kind of supplement the missing information in the pre-sentence report to increase his chances. But these are things that you guys have to be very, very aware of, because if he had been given his pre-sentence report, when your pre-sentence report is completed, guys, you're supposed to get a copy of it, or at least time to review it, because you have about, I forgot, 10 or 14 days to review the pre-sentence report to make sure there's no inaccuracies or misinformation. And this is something that may have been able to be caught by him if he would have reviewed this, or if he had a consultant at this point. These are some things that can make a huge difference, because now there's a lot of work to be done after the fact, and it can kind of create a grief between you and your attorney, because your attorneys don't specialize in RDAP, guys. And I hate to tell you, I don't care if you've got the best high-priced private attorney out there, most of them are not super involved in the qualifying factors for RDAP. They'll tell you, oh, wait, that's up to the BOP. You'll deal with that when you get there. No, it has a lot to do with what's in that with what's in that report.
And I got a powerful lawyer, and you could. But what I will tell you is, even having the best surgeon and going into surgery, if you don't have a good anesthesiologist, you're not waking up. So a good lawyer and RDAP, Dan, that's like having a Super Bowl team with a good quarterback and a good offensive line.
And it allows the attorney to focus on what they're good at, and allows the expert to focus on what they're good at. And our job is sentencing mitigation, to make sure that all of these other moving parts are in alignment, so you can receive the best possible outcome and serve the least amount of time. Right. So the person asked, okay, RDAP, they asked what RDAP is. RDAP is a residential drug abuse program. It's a 500-hour cognitive-based program that you take in prison if you have a substance abuse issue, and it can be marijuana, prescription pills, alcohol. You don't have to be drinking yourself into a stupor or walking around with a heroin needle sticking out of your arm. You can be, a weekend warrior. You can be a daily pot smoker. As long as you're disclosing this information to probation at the time of your pre-sentence report that you use. Right. And by no means am I telling you to lie or make it up, but if you are using, make sure you tell them, don't minimize, because if you qualify for the program, like in his case, this could knock off a year off of a sentence. And we're going to do the math a little bit with how much time he could do with good time, RDAP, halfway house. It shaves off quite a bit of time, because, and we'll do the math. Anybody who wants to follow along, if you have your calculator here, so in case you want to call me out and say, RDAP, Dan, you're wrong. On a 78-month sentence, guys, if you do the math on that, 78 months times 0.85, because you serve 85% of your time in the BOP right off the gate, you're going to get 15% off just for good time alone. So that brings you to 66 months. If he does end up qualifying for RDAP, that can knock another year off of a sentence. That would bring him to 54 months. Then we've got the First Step Act. So classes that he can take, programming credits that he can take, he's going to have enough time where he can receive up to a year of First Step Act credits, earned time credits, where he can receive up to another year off of a sentence, which would bring him to 42 months. And if he gets full halfway house, which can be another 12 months of halfway house, that can have him serving 30 months inside the prison. And then the rest of his time, the other 12 months can be done between halfway house and home confinement. So out of 78 months to do 30 months inside, that's a big, big deal. And I'm sure that's something that, gives you, I imagine, looking at a 78-month sentence, that must give your family some hope and some breathing room to say, 30 months is nowhere near as bad as 78 months.
True. 100%. 100%.
But you have to know how to align yourself. You got to know what you got to know what you're doing. And you can't just assume that your attorney is going to automatically cover all of these factors for you. And because when you start allowing everybody else to take control and you kind of stick your head in the sand, when something does go awry, you really don't have anybody to blame but yourself. He can be upset at his attorney if he wanted to, but nothing good is going to come from that. He can say, "Oh, you didn't show me the PSR." It's water under the bridge at this point.
Yep. Well, you're 100% right. And one of the things I will tell you is that anybody that's on here now, you're on here for a reason. Why? Because you're either in the storm or you're about to go in through the storm. So get as much protection as you can to protect you from the outcome of the storm. And I would tell you, me personally, before hiring if I had it all over to do again, before hiring a higher power lawyer to only plead you out, because once the feds get you, they already know what they're doing. I would rather hire a regular attorney, just a basic attorney, and then RDAP Dan and his team. Put them both together and you got power.
Yeah, we get the question all the time, and we see it happen all the time. Half of our clients have federally appointed attorneys, and the other half of our client have high-priced private attorneys, and almost all of our clients end up taking a plea deal. So it usually ends up being the same thing, whether you have a high-priced attorney or an appointed attorney, whether it's from the Federal Defender's Office or CJA attorney, you end up with the same outcome because it really comes down to certain factors, your guidelines, the crime you committed, money losses. Unless you're going to go to trial, a high-priced private attorney really doesn't benefit you the same way.
It's a waste of money. You're taking that money from your family that could go to your family.
Yep. You look back on it and it's so easy to say, oh man, what was I thinking? I was talking to a guy yesterday after I spoke to you, and he hasn't been indicted yet. He doesn't even know. Doesn't even know if he's under investigation, but he's freaking out, and it's PPP stuff. He's just on the phone breaking down, just crying because his tax attorney received a phone call from some kind of governing agency into an investigation. His name came up. So now the sleepless nights, the anxiety, the not knowing of what's next is probably the biggest fear.
Oh my God. It was hard.
Talk about that a little bit.
In my case, I woke up to a text from a couple of people that I referred, and they were showing me in the text that the gentleman that I did the paperwork with was arrested. You know what I mean? I didn't know anything until I received that, and it was like I was from that point on, I started losing it. So that dragged out for about 30 days before they came and got me. You talk about a dragged out 30 days. It felt horrible. It felt
every phone ring, every knock at the door. It's whew.
Listen, and when they came and knocked, you know what I mean? When they came and knocked, it was about 5 o'clock in the morning. And my wife said, "Who is banging on the door like that?" And I said, "They coming to get me." And she, you know what I mean? And she was nervous.
What time did you come?
Like 5, what was it, 5:45? 5:45.
In the evening.
No, in the morning.
In the morning, I was going to say that's pretty late. Feds don't usually work that late. They're usually home at 5.
And let me tell you, Dan, they came as if I was El Chapo. They had feds in the back. They were everywhere. You know what I mean? And it was an experience that was just horrible. So I would tell anybody that if you're starting to get phone calls, grab your attorney, grab Dan, start preparing everything. And when you get there, be totally honest. This is not one of those things that you get in there and I just don't say that. Take your lawyer with you. Let your lawyer tell you what to say. They don't care about nobody else but you most of the time because they already know everything. But I will say be totally honest with them when they ask you about what it is that you did. You can't talk about what other people did, but what it is that you did because they already know it.
When we see that happen a lot when people go into like proffers and stuff, if the feds ask you a question about was PJ, Dan, and Matt there, and you say yes, but if Kyle was also there and they didn't mention his name, you better bring up Kyle's name, because not telling them about something that they don't know about is, in their mind, it's the same as withholding and lying. If you get offered a proffer or you're going to do any kind of cooperation, you're either all in or you're not in at all, because proffers don't do you any good if they think that if you lied during a proffer, all of that protection under the proffer goes away, guys. So make sure you really go through this with your attorneys with a T on there, because if you don't, you put yourself into a situation where you end up with additional charges, which can destroy any type of assistance that you may be giving. I know a lot of you out there going, oh, you're telling people how to snitch and this and that. I'm not telling anybody how to snitch, but I'm telling you, if you're taking a deal and you're going to take the deal, you better do it the right way, or you're going to waste your time and end up with no deal.
I tell you, in my case, the gentleman that was over me, James Stokes, he gave him so much information completely on everybody. And today they didn't really need anybody to say anything, but come in there and you know what I mean?
Where is James Stokes at today?
He got 10 years. And
10 years,
I think he turns himself in next week too.
Okay, so he hasn't gone in yet either. Where's he going?
I couldn't tell you. You probably could tell me.
Okay. Because I don't think you guys are not allowed to talk, correct?
Right.
Okay.
But so I think because he testified against me, they won't put him in the same place I'm at.
Correct. Yeah. They very, very rarely, they will send co-defendants to the same place, but it sounds like you guys have a separate T, since there was he testified against you basically.
Yeah.
So now we're dealing with that. You're getting ready to go. You're going to Coleman, and anybody that's curious about Coleman, I just posted a link in this live stream. I've got a video. I actually went back to Coleman, took a little drive around. I don't know if you saw that video. Did you see that video?
Yeah, I seen it.
Okay. So we took a drive through Coleman. This is still when it was a women's camp. This is, I don't know, a couple of years ago. This was 2019, but it's the same layout, same facility. But there's no RDAP there. So now in his situation, what we're doing is we're trying to fill in the blanks of what's missing in the pre-sentence report with a substance abuse evaluation, where that will get sent to the prison, and it's probably going to go to the prison psychologist of Coleman camp. If they interview him there, because even though it's not a RDAP facility, they can still interview him for RDAP. And if he qualifies, they can then put him in for transfer, where they would likely send him probably like Pensacola. So the problem is now he's got to potentially go through a transfer, which many of you can avoid if you make sure that this is done the right way. And this is why it's so important to know the process. We have people all the time that are like, oh yeah, I dealt with that. Don't worry, they told me at sentencing I was going to get RDAP. My judge recommended it. And if I had a nickel for every time that we heard that,
you'd be welcome.
And I think your judge said the same thing. Your judge told you you're recommended for it.
And you know what? She didn't actually mention RDAP, but she said that I was recommended for the alcohol. She was recommending me for the alcohol and drug program, and I think mental health and anger management. What's so funny is if you look at my PSI, down the bottom of my PSI, it talks about me, taking drug tests and everything when I get out and all the stipulations. But then if I'm gonna have to take all these tests and everything, it would show that I have a problem. So why am I not going to where I can get help with the problem? But now I leave it up to you, RDAP, Dan. Let's make magic happen. So that way, when I call you from within and be on the show, I can say I did a very good job.
The powers that be that make these decisions. So once he was sentenced, his file and paperwork, everything went over to Grand Prairie, Texas, where designation and computation is decided. And they screen through these things to see, what his qualifications are, where he's gonna be placed at based on his custody level. And then they screen for programs like RDAP, and they go right to the substance abuse area. And as soon as they saw defendant says he used recreational use only, that to them, they didn't look any further than that. He's got documentation to support that there was some issues there. It just, for whatever reason, the probation officer just did what they wanted to do. So it shouldn't be too hard. You know, we've had some cases where individuals that are trying to get into the program, they didn't disclose anything out of fear, anxiety. They didn't want to get in trouble, whatever it was. They were wrong for doing that, but they didn't, none of that was explained. So now they're trying to go in after the fact. And even sometimes they get lucky with the substance abuse evaluation, will end up in the program. So somebody like you that really does have the need for it. And the cool thing about it, which I don't know if we really touched on, but the First Step Act, the programming credits you can earn, not if you do take RDAP, you'll get the sentence reduction for the drug program, and you also get the earn time credits for the First Step Act. So you're really double dipping on getting your earn time credits there. Now today we had a call with you, with Tom Root. We had another call because you're going through the phases right now. As you get ready to go, you're trying to make sure you have all of your ducks in a row. And I think you're learning there's so many moving parts that once you're gone, it's so much harder to facilitate because now you're in there. You have limited use of a phone. I looked at Coleman. Coleman's on a level 3 alert with their COVID alert. So Coleman may be on a bit of on running very, very tight when you get there. So we'll be ready for that. Now you are filing an extension, so hopefully we get your extension. But I checked on that today. I forgot to tell you. But we'll talk about that in a minute. So what do we go over today? What were some things that we spoke about today? We had Tom Root on the line, and we're assisting you with some other stuff to make sure that you have your family situated. So if any problems arise, that will be able to be handled in a timely manner as well.
Yeah, one of the key things we went over is just lining things up that your family can handle, medical and handle anything financial that need to be, and the power of attorneys and things of that nature, which were things that I'm glad that he brought up. And, between, Tom really told me some good things that need to happen. It was just excellent. The advice that y'all gave me, made me, really at a settlement of just knowing what I need to do before going. And I could only imagine for me how it would have been to get up at Coleman and one, think there's an RDAP, and two, not having everything together with a power of attorney and some of the things that I have. It would have been a mess because once you're in there, you're in there. That's it.
And restitution as well, right? Because you have restitution, obviously, of on the high end of or close to $6 million.
Right. We talk about the restitution, and I'm glad I don't have any money anyway. So the money I have, I want to pay my dues back to society.
Yep. Give it back to the. We had a guy that he had no money either, but he had decent amount of restitution. He was getting ready to go in, and he had some family that was going to put money on his books in the tune of around like $1,000 a month to make sure he had money on his books. Problem is, hey, you can't spend that much in a month, especially at a place like Coleman. Your max is like $340. So just so what's that?
I said he can give me some of it.
Right. But if you have friends or family that are going to put money on your books, guys, and if you owe restitution, you have something called FRP, financial responsibility payments. And if you're in there putting $500-$600 a month on your books, the government's very likely to go in there and take 25% of that. And you're like, and then you end up not having money for food, for things like this. So make sure, you're paying attention to how much you're going to owe, and you're putting minimal amount of money on your books, because I can tell you one of the worst things in the world. I used to see guys, I was very fortunate to have somebody put money on my books while I was in, and I didn't have restitution, so I didn't have to worry about that. And I used to see these guys that had no money. And when the unit would be cooking in Coleman, you'd smell, the pizzas and the tacos and the cakes and whatever people were heating up. And then you would see these guys that had nothing, no money. They had to wait till the next meal. And you could just see, you could hear their stomach grumbling, and it would create this negative energy from them. There's nothing worse than being hungry. And you don't want to be that guy that's begging for food. Sure, once in a while you go around and offer somebody something, but it's not the same in taking the scraps from somebody versus being able to maintain and provide throughout the time that you're locked up. So you want to be able to manage what you have when it's coming in. If you owe restitution, I'm not saying you're supposed to hide money from the government, but most of you that owe restitution really aren't going to be forced to pay a lot until you're out of prison. You might be paying 15-20% of your inmate salary, which is peanuts. But if you've got somebody going out of their way to put a little bit of money on your book so you can buy some hygiene and buy some food. And then they take that as well. It's just, it's salt on an open wound. So be thoughtful of when you're going in there and how much money you're putting on your books, because I've seen some individuals get kind of sliced sideways on that.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad I don't have a lot to put on my books. So that's one problem I don't have to worry about.
Scott says, Scott was there. Scott's one of our older clients. The more you spend, the more they take. And it's, you know, it's true. Nobody wants to go to prison. Coleman really is not a bad spot. If you got to go, Coleman's not a bad place to go. COVID has just really put a wrench in everything. So these prisons get put on lockdown a lot because of, when I say lockdown, like they shut down visitation. They still have the 500 minutes a month going for the phones, and it's unlimited, free. So there's no cost for the phone. So you still got that going for you. But as far as
500 a month on the phone?
Right now it is. It's typically only 300. But during COVID, they've lifted it unless they dropped it again. I try to stay up on it, but things change like the weather. But the rec yard probably is closed right now. If you go on the BOP's website, guys, on each prison, it will tell you what level they're at. And Coleman's on a level 3 right now, which is the highest level they can have. It's probably because they had some more COVID outbreaks. It's in Florida. Who knows what the reason is? So when you have a situation like that, there's usually no visitation. There is no visitation right now at Coleman. I know that for a fact. And that can create, you know, issues with your family and stuff, because we've had people that, you know, for you, Coleman's not a short drive. Families driving from Miami area to Coleman. What's that? About 4.5, 5 hour drive to get there, and to find out as they're getting there that all of a sudden, because it's not like there's notice given going, hey, we're going to go on lockdown tomorrow. You go on lockdown that moment, and there could be somebody in line at visitation and boom, turned away at the door. No explanation, no sorry. It's just, you know, try again next month. So you have to kind of be prepared for some of these hiccups and accept this as part of the consequence of the situation that like what you put yourself in. And these are some of the situations that your family are still going to feel effects from. So being aware that these kind of issues can arise, I think it really helps with the preparation of what to expect. Because like you said, if you would have walked into Coleman just to find out there's no RDAP, not that you wouldn't have been able to deal with it, but now you're getting time to adjust, and you're getting time to make some situational moves that might be able to position you for RDAP down the road. On a 78-month sentence, you've still got time to make it happen for you. Where if you had a 24-month sentence to find this out on the minimum sentence required, it's very unlikely, because now not only would we have to get you approved, then you'd have to get transferred in time and go to a place that's starting in time. It would be next to impossible. So things could still work out very well for you. What's this? Let's see here. Only get visits once a month. No, somebody's asking if you only get visits once a month. No, some people maybe only want their family to come once a month, but most places, depending on where you're at, you could get a visit almost every week. You have points that you can spend. At the camp, I think they only do visitations Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And if anybody knows if I'm correct on that, let me know. At the low, they have them almost every day of the week, because there's 3,000 inmates at the low versus a couple hundred inmates at the camp. So, you know, they have to be able to fit everybody in. But I imagine you're not going to want to visit every single weekend. You know, and the visits are long. Yeah, the visits are long, guys. The visits are almost an entire day. So I don't know about you, but I wouldn't want to sit across the picnic table for my loved one for 5-6 hours. You know, that's a long time to talk about, you know, what I don't know. I don't know what you do across the picnic table for 5 or 6 hours.
Yeah, once a month for me is more than enough.
Good enough. So being that you're ready to go, hopefully, you know, your attorney filed the motion today. So we'll check on that and see. And I think it will get you. You have a relatively, your judge seems like, you know, 78 months is a chunk of time, but your judge did make some statements towards you that you could tell that they didn't think you were the worst person in the world. You've done everything you're supposed to.
If I could say that, Pamela A. Barker was a great judge. You know, just
shout out to Pamela A. Barker.
Hey, that's it. 38 letters that was sent to her. She read all 38 letters. You know, and you know, it was just very important. Some of the things that she said, I have to give credit to, we always talk about the bad, but I have to give credit to the agents, to the prosecutor. Everybody was professional, that handled me. And I just thank God for that.
Well, you're one of the few people that has gone through this situation or going through this situation, and you learned earlier on than later that you did it to yourself, and you took responsibility kind of earlier than a lot of other people do.
The minute it happened, that's the easiest. I mean, I didn't do it when I first went in, but once I realized the severity, I took responsibility and said it was time to move on.
And that's really the key to the success in all of this, is because the sooner that you realize that there is no way out of this, at least not what you initially see as a way out. The way out is minimizing the casualty, and minimizing the casualty is they got you.
The right team.
And having the right team, the right people.
Because the feds have the right team coming after you. So you have to get the right team to try to just, make yourself at peace. That's the most you can do. And, they just passed a law where they made it a 10-year statute of limitations. So there's going to be a lot of people going through this. So if you took the PPP and you get a chance to see this, there's going to be some sleepless nights. If they haven't came to get you, most of the time they are coming. So just start preparing yourself. And I would say to anybody,
you just scared the Holy Ghost out of half of America.
Yeah, but one of the things I would say, Dan, is you got a chance now to at least, I'm not saying hire your lawyer now, but you got a chance now to get in front of this thing, at least with RDAP Dan, and start making some payments this way that that things will be right when they do come knock on the door, because they are coming to knock.
Yeah, Jamie says once the feds get you, you're probably going to prison. And that's a fair statement, guys. I can tell you that the ownership of, like what he's saying, if any of you out there have PPP loans or disaster relief loans, and you did some shady stuff with it, do your best to pay it back, because not to say that that's going to get you from underneath or going to trouble. If they do any kind of investigation and see that you took a PPP loan for 15 employees, you only had 5, even if you paid the whole thing back, you're probably still going to get in trouble because you're an easy target. But the fact that you took it upon yourself to go repay this prior to getting in trouble, it will play a role, even if it doesn't change your guidelines. Like in his situation, he didn't have a minimum mandatory. He had a set a guideline range, which were advisory to the court. The judge had the ability to go below or above these guidelines. If a situational person makes the restitution back before they even get in any kind of trouble, that could play heavy on a judge's decision as what they should do at sentencing. So doing the right thing right now, I know there's a lot of terrified people out there, because it was kind of like giving children a loaded weapon, and it was too easy to manipulate, and too many people were desperate. And not to give anybody excuses, I went through a situation where when COVID first hit, our business as a consulting slowed down to a snail crawl, because everybody that was in trouble, their court dates were pushed out so far that they weren't in any type of a hurry to take care of the situation or hire a consultant. So we went from where we were doing, between 6 to 10 new clients a month to where we were getting like 1 to 2 clients every other month. And I was like, oh my God, wow. SBA saved my life. And it would have been so easy for us to manipulate that situation, because it was all done on a form online, right? Just plug numbers in. And I was like, my God, I could say I have 20 employees, and I would have gotten their money. But we didn't, and Shelly has always been a great voice of reason, even though I wouldn't have done it without Shelly, but she was still like, hey, we've only got this many people that are on our payroll. I already got her in a situation where she went to prison once. She's not going to let me put her in a situation where she's going to go to prison again. I can tell you that.
100%, man. And
so I know you got you do was it a Bible study?
Yep. God blessed me to be able to start a Bible study about 1.5 years ago.
And you do that every week on Zoom.
Every Tuesday on Zoom. And I got that at 7:00. I'm truly excited that he's using me. So Lord willing, when I get up to Coleman, he'll be able to use me up there, and I'll be able to do some great things. And I'm just thankful.
There's never a shortage of people. I think you'll have that opportunity. No question at Coleman.
The welcoming committee, And
Is there
the
anything
blessing
you
of
want
it
to
is that I
leave?
don't have-
Oh, go ahead. Say it again.
I said the blessing of it is that you know, I'm walking in the door with a smile with 78 months. So you know that's got to be respected. That only God can do that for me.
Don't walk in the door with a prison costume on. Oh, you didn't know that? Maybe you didn't get the joke. You know, I wore a prison costume in as a joke, thinking
Did
they were
you?
going to find it funny. Oh, I'll send you the picture.
But you got to sip it.
Oh,
Did you do that for real?
I did it for real. I really did. I went to Party City and bought a black and white prison costume. Yeah. Don't. So that's why
I won't do that.
I'll send you the picture of me standing outside of Coleman wearing the outfit where they took a picture before I walked in. But you can ask them when you get there. To this day, but yeah, it didn't go over. It ended up going over well in the end. It didn't go over well in the moment of time. Anything you want to leave everybody here with before you go? And obviously, if you don't go on the day that you're supposed to self-surrender, if your extension gets granted, you know, maybe because I don't think your attorney didn't seem to think that this was going to get granted, right?
Well, that's what he told me. He said, you know, the knee procedure, he said it's not a big thing to a judge. So, you know, he's going to file it. But what I will say is that, you know, it's up to God. I don't want to be nowhere God don't want me to be. And I want to be exactly where he wants me to be because God's timing is perfect. And what I would like to say to everybody before I leave, the 91st Psalms is what brought me through this. So, you know, whether you're spiritual, religious, or whatever, grab your Bible, pick up and read the 91st Psalms in the morning and in the evening, and I guarantee you, God will pull you through. I promise you that.
Guys, there you go. We look really forward to maintaining while you're in there, keeping tabs on you. If you do get the extension granted, maybe we'll have you on one more time. You can talk about what that process was like a little bit. We'll show people, you know, what you're able to do. But I really appreciate you taking the time, sharing your story. It's not easy to talk about something, especially when it's fraud, because it's so easy for people to pick at somebody that does that. And you've taken this real humble. You've owned it. You've taken responsibility. And I think you're going to do just fine. Our job is to help you get in, get out as fast as possible, but we want you to get out and stay out. So that's why RDAP is going to be a big thing for you, my man. You
ain't got to worry about that. I appreciate you, man. And everybody, you're going to make it through this. I guarantee you. God promises that.
Well, thank you very much, guys. I'm RDAP Dan, Federal Prison Time Consulting. People helping people, communities method, one day at a time. See you guys soon. Peace.
See you soon.